Let's put everything you've learned together. Loops and conditionals to assign restaurant food safety grades. The last piece of the puzzle is creating more than 2 branches in your code using control flow. In a previous video, you were writing code to check each restaurant score and assign it a grade. This is where you left off in a previous video. Remember, this code printed whether a score was an A or less than that. You also have some new variables for B and C cutoff scores. Right now, this code has 2 branches, A or less than A. To assign B's and C's, you need to create more than 2 branching paths. You can add a new branch using elif, which stands for else if, meaning essentially check another condition for me. If score is greater than or equal to B, you want to print B. Notice that all 3 of these branches provide unique pathways for the code to execute. You can only take one of them for each score. You can kind of think of them like a progressive filter. Any scores that are greater than or equal to 90 follow this branch in the code and print A. elif checks another condition. Is score greater than or equal to B? If so, print B. How should you change the else print statement? Well, now the else is the catch-all bucket for scores less than B. Run this code and you get A, less than B, A, and B. You can add as many elifs as you like until you've created all the branches you need in your code. So you can add another elif score greater than or equal to C, then print C. Now you change the else to failed. If you didn't get an A, B, or C, you failed. Running that code, now you have a C represented in your data as well. Now that you've created these different branches inside your loop, you can do some cool operations. For example, say you're working with the full data set, which you've previously created using this helper function. You might want to create a new list containing all the assigned grades for the restaurants. You can create a new empty list, grades, and append the newly assigned grade for each score inside your loop. So instead of print A, you can say grades.append A. How would you finish modifying this code? You can just append the corresponding grade inside each conditional. B, C, and failed. Last question. Say this loop runs, and afterwards you print the length of the list grades. How long do you expect this list to be? It should be the same length as the list of scores, 67,000 or so. You should take a look at this data and check whether your code worked properly. Remember, just because it ran doesn't mean it worked correctly. So how? Try asking your LLM. Here's a prompt. Write me code to print out the first 10 items of the list scores and the list grades. So let's try this code. It's new and fancy, but looks like some kind of indexing of the list. Running that code, you can inspect the data. This looks right. The first grade is a B, while the rest are all A's, all in the 90s. That should match your intuition, since you already saw that about 95% of scores are A's. Let's model the branching code you just wrote using a flowchart, just to solidify what you've learned. The first if statement checks whether the score is greater than A or 90. If true, then the code will append A to the list of scores. If false, then the code will move down this path to check if the second elif statement is true or false. If it's true, then the code appends B to the list. If that statement is false, then the code moves into the next elif, appending C if it's true. If that final condition is false, it moves into the else block, appending failed. This code creates 4 possible branches. For each score, the code will go down one of these 4 paths. Remember that all of this happens inside the for loop, so one of these 4 branches will execute for each score in the list scores. If there are 5 items, this chain of decisions happens 5 times. If there are 60,000 items, it happens 60,000 times. You can create as many branches as you need. You always have one if statement, and optionally an else statement. And if you need more than 2 branches, you can add elifs in the middle. 1 elif, 2 elifs, or as many as you need. You can also have just if and elif statements, a pattern you can use if you don't need a catch-all bucket at the end. Notice the descending pattern in the scores. This pattern takes advantage of the sequential nature of if statements. Each condition applies that the previous condition was false. That way, you avoid having to check the score against both the high and low boundaries for the grade. Great work creating branching code with elif. In the next video, you'll learn the final key concept of this module, how to loop through multiple lists at once. I'll see you there.